Welcome to the Adaptive Cards Community Call for April 2022. If you're new here, we host these community calls every second Thursday of the month. If you come here often, welcome back. Today we have a very exciting presentation with our friends over in Outlook, Karan. He'll be presenting about universal actions plus messaging extensions. I'll talk about some accessibility updates as well as scheduling updates for adaptive cards, and then we can hop over to our Q&A section. Karan, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself briefly?
Thank you so much for having me, JP. It's fantastic being here for the third time and speaking with this lovely community. All right, my name is Karan. I am a product manager from third party content and experiences platform team. What does our team stand for? Our team aims to empower our developer partners like all of you to better bring in their content within M365 ecosystem and enhance the experiences that you deliver for your end users. And today, we will talk about two of the many ways in which we make this happen. Specifically, we will be walking you through universal actions and messaging extensions and the value prop for these for your end users. Now, I'm sure most of you would already know that adaptive cards, in a nutshell, enable you to take quick actions right from within your chat messages in Teams and emails in Outlook. And I am sure that you would have also seen some of these sought after scenarios in your day to day lives. Just as a recap, every time you reply to a missed activity notification from Teams or reply to @mentioned comments for Office, these are being powered by adaptive cards under the hood. Similarly, every time you approve someone to be a part of a group or approve an access request for a shared doc, you again are leveraging adaptive cards. Adaptive cards essentially are cross-platform and cross-app snippets of UI that make your content actionable, give a native performance across devices, and blend beautifully into every app to give a delightful user experience. And while I can go on and on about what's the best for adaptive cards, for today's discussion, let me introduce you to universal actions. Universal actions essentially enable you to have just one adaptive card payload that magically works across your applications in Teams and in Outlook. To make this happen, we introduced a new action type called action.execute, which was a welcome change from the older models of action.submit in Teams and action.http in Outlook. With the introduction of action.execute, the very same adaptive card payload now syncs across applications in Teams and Outlook. And what's more to it is the introduction of a new refresh clause as well. With this refresh clause, your users get to know about the completion of their workflows instantaneously, as this refresh enables you to send cards as feedback in response to an update. If I were to summarize the value prop of universal actions in three simple statements, universal actions ease your developmental effort by providing a platform agnostic model. This implies that you can build just once and deploy your app everywhere across M365, and that app will magically work across Teams, Outlook, and more. For your end users, this enables a seamless sync of actions between their emails in Outlook and chat messages in Teams. So you, as a developer partner, have to no longer worry about the hub of choice for your users because we reach them where they are. And while today's discussion will be focused only on these capabilities across Teams and Outlook, we have ambitious plans to launch these capabilities across all other M365 hubs, including the likes of Search, Windows, etc. Now, to visually illustrate our value prop via a scenario, we will be walking you through the journey in the lives of people who deal with vacation approval scenarios. The request initiator in this case, Pat, wants to apply for a leave request. Once the leave request is applied, his manager, Cat, receives an actionable email, which is a welcome change from normal HTML emails. And the manager in this case no longer has to get redirected to an external tool to approve the vacation request. On the contrary, she can now act upon this request within her email in Outlook by clicking an approve button and be done with it. And as Kat, the manager, approves this request, she is delighted to see that the request approval happens across Teams and Outlook clients. In this case, the request was approved within Outlook Mobile. However, we see the same update getting reflected in Outlook Desktop and Teams Desktop as well. All in all, the actors for such requests need to take an action just once within the hub of their choice and magically see the same approval getting reflected everywhere, including your app. And what's in the best interest for the initiator of the request, Pat in this case, is that they get to benefit from timely approvals. We have a lot of data that suggests that with using adaptive cards, we have cut down on these approval times by up to 48x. So approval requests that earlier used to take anywhere between a few days to a few weeks now get completed within a matter of hours. And while universal actions and refresh are just the start of the journey, we are excited to talk more about contextual or role-based views as well. Many a times, the scenarios that we deal with entail that the same adaptive card payload manifest and render itself in different ways for different actors. An example that's showcased here is when Daniela, the initiator of the request, raises a request to give discount, and the manager, Marie, who's also the approver of the request, has the power to approve this discount request. And what we see here in the deck is that Daniela's view talks about the request that she just initiated with an option to cancel the request, whereas Marie's, the approver's view, is very different. He instead sees the options to approve or reject this request, as well as be able to view and decipher additional details. Just to summarize what's happening here, it's the very same adaptive card payload, which renders very differently basis the roles that are assigned to these individuals. Now, I would love to present a video that talks about this in a slightly more complex scenario.
Megan is a safety inspector at Contoso who routinely inspects the sites and reports incidents. Let's see a typical day at Megan's work and how the new capabilities we talked earlier provide rich contextual experiences to her and the team. Megan observes that one of the boilers at a remote site had broken down and files a new incident through Contoso Report Incidents message extension in Teams. The incident card gets posted in the group, and you can see that the message, although posted by the bot, shows it being sent by Megan. This demonstrates the sender attribution feature we talked about a while back. To easily demonstrate role-based views, I've logged into 3 different user accounts. Of Megan's, who files the incident, of Alex, to whom the incident is assigned to, and of Nestor, who represents the rest of the group members who are not involved in the process. As you can see, we have different buttons present on the same card for all the 3 different users. When the incident was created, Alex also received the same card over email. Let's check that out. As you can see, Alex received the same card, which was posted in Teams, and he could still see contextual buttons which are only visible to him. As the incident gets resolved, you can see that even the cards that were posted in Teams get updated. This demonstrates role-based views as well as universal actions in cards in teams.
All right. Before we proceed ahead, let me just recap what happened here. There was an incident that was created, and the card for that rendered differently basis the different views that were assigned to personas. And someone who has the ability to resolve this incident actually took an action in Outlook, not in Teams, but in Outlook. And the very same action, that resolution, got reflected in Teams as well. That's the part that summarizes universal actions. So, an action that happens in Outlook renders beautifully and gets updated in Teams as well. And as far as the contextual views are concerned, we could see the cards getting rendered differently for different actors in this scenario. The last key universal actions capability that we would want to talk about is sequential workflows. Many a times we deal with scenarios where an action leads to another. These aren't a single click actions and rather entail complete workflows. And in the earlier model, we would see that upon acting on a single card, the bot that we are interacting with would send another card. And this kind of conversation model would end up consuming the entire real estate on our viewport. And to enhance the experiences for our end users, we came up with this capability of sequential workflows wherein the same card continues to get updated upon different actions. And to illustrate this visually, let me play this video. So someone selects chicken for their meal and tea for their drink, confirm the order, and while this entire workflow completes, we see that the same card is getting updated. So rather than having to see three different cards on our viewport, we can complete the entire workflow within the same card itself. And just to drive home the point again, I'll replay. So we select our drink, confirm the order, all within the same card. Now for the remainder of our talk, I'll take a pivot and talk about a completely different kind of scenarios that revolve around messaging extensions and link unfurling. I'll proceed ahead and talk about messaging extensions. Now, the reason I call this a pivot is because in all of our earlier scenarios, we looked at cards that were system generated. Another way to put it, all of the cards that we have seen thus far are sent by machines. There is a tool that generates and sends these cards. And the benefit for us humans is to be able to consume these cards. Now we would look at scenarios where we get to benefit not only from the consumption of adaptive cards, but also from the creation of them. So now we have the capability that empowers us to create adaptive cards while we are writing messages or emails. We achieve this via messaging extensions. Again, just to quickly summarize what messaging extensions entail, they allow your users to find, create, and insert content from third-party services. These content and actions are not only natively embedded in chat canvases, but also give contextual and connected experiences to your users. I'll again walk you through the mocks that illustrate this visually. We would be seeing two completely different kind of messaging extensions, starting with search, or another way to put it, read-only messaging extensions, wherein we have the ability to insert a card for a hypothetical app named Contoso that deals with ticketing management scenarios. So imagine you dealing with a work item that you would want to socialize and publish within your team. You can click on the Contoso's icon at the bottom of your team's chat, select the work item, and what you would see is a beautiful and delightful card getting inserted in the chat window. And again, needless to say, this is a welcome change from the earlier paradigm where we would typically paste links to these work items. Now you can make these experiences a lot richer by being able to share cards rather than just plain URLs. And as soon as you send chat message, what actually gets delivered to the users is a card wherein the users can have buttons to view additional details or to complete certain other actions. And when we talk about actionable messaging extensions, we take this a step further and enable our users to also create content on the fly and the recipients of these to take multiple other actions. Again, we go ahead with the example of Contoso. And rather than sharing a work item that already exists, the user in this case will actually create a new work item, fill in the task details, assign it to someone, click on create, and what we see is a beautiful card with all the right set of information being sent to the audience. And while we have showed what can be achieved upon clicking the app icons at the very bottom, we would also be interested in showcasing how link unfurling works, wherein all you need to do essentially is to copy a link, and the link in itself manifests and renders into a beautiful adaptive card. So imagine the power of converting every URL, every link on this planet into adaptive cards to give an enchanted experiences to your users. Now, I would love to answer the questions that have been put on the chat, but before I do so, I would also love to discuss about the success stories that we have witnessed thus far. Just in terms of the sheer number of partners that we have already onboarded to build on top of adaptive cards, our community stands at 1,000 plus strong developers. And two key reasons why we recommend all our partners to use adaptive cards are first, so that they can benefit from an enhanced engagement rate. These case studies are from Microsoft internal tools. For SharePoint and Power Automate, we have data indicating that for their 6 million plus monthly emails that are sent and leverage adaptive cards, the engagement rate is as high as 45%. This clearly demonstrates close to a 4x uplift in engagement as against plain HTML-based scenarios. The second key benefit for using adaptive cards are the faster approvals that in a way lead to monetary savings as well. We have data that suggests that adaptive cards lead to close to an $8 million saving every year by saving late credit card fee, as the approvers of these expense requests are empowered to act quickly. So just to summarize, use adaptive cards if you want your products to stand out from the competition, have better engagement rate, and enjoy monetary savings. Now, I'm sure after hearing the success stories and seeing all the mocks that we have presented thus far, you would be interested in knowing how to onboard and start building on adaptive cards. This is a very high level call to action. Our request would be to start envisioning scenarios, think how adaptive cards can help you and your users to better their day-to-day lives. Then go ahead and design and build these adaptive cards. We have linked our developer documentation that details the process of creating and building an adaptive card. And the third essential element here would be to have an Azure bot setup that would actually communicate with the emails in Outlook and the chat messages in Teams. This is to say that the Azure bot will act as the middle tier between your APIs at the back end, and our clients, Outlook and Teams, at the very front, and make sure that there is interoperability and synchronization between the user actions initiated on either Teams or Outlook. We would love to share these developer doc links with all of you, and we'll be happy and very excited to answer any questions you may have. And feel free to reach out to us. My name is Karan. You may hit me up on my email ID, and I would love to hear from all of you. And that's all, folks.
Really
You, JP.
appreciate it. For those that don't know, today is actually a holiday in IDC, so Karan took the time out of his holiday to hop on this call. We really appreciate that, Karan. This is great, and the chat is very excited. They have a ton of questions. So let me just go ahead and briefly talk about the next section so we can jump right into the Q&A and get all these questions answered. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about were some accessibility updates that our team has been performing. As you may know, our recent release of the SDK version 1.5, that was our most recent release, and that happened in October of last year. So it's been quite a bit since we've released a new SDK for adaptive cards. A lot of this has been due to delays that our team has experienced with working with accessibility. We're really trying to make adaptive cards accessible everywhere and going forward. Our team is working on closing a ton of bugs, whether it be on the website or our different renders. And once we get this accessibility story ironed out and have a better, more accessible experience for adaptive cards, we will share more updates regarding our version 1.6 release. Right now, I can't mention or commit to a date, but we're really hoping to get it out within the next couple of months. And that was it for me. We can hop straight into the Q&A. And I'll go back to the Teams chat so we can read the questions in the order we received them. The first question is from Tomas. He's asking, Karan, is what you're showing going to be available for citizen developers, like an action from a Cloudflow? Because as far as I know, action.execute requires a chatbot underneath to really work fine.
Thanks, JP. And that's a great question. Our recommendation is to have a chatbot that backs these capabilities across Teams and Outlook. We have heard the feedback from multiple developers to make this available for citizen developers as well. And yes, let me bring this feedback up again in my leadership conversations. But as of today, our guidance and recommended practice is to have a bot, an Azure bot that backs these up.
Rick, thank you so much for that. Next question is from Craig. He's asking, how much of this solution is based on one that needs to be an IT division access versus a power user with no IT/admin access?
So JP, that's a great question. Now, what I would suggest is that if your scenario is one that deals with a global scope, so if you are an ISV, then the party that approves your registrations is Microsoft. So feel free to develop these solutions. These solutions come to us for an approval. We review those registrations and approve them. And you may not be required to go and visit your IT admins. Microsoft would serve as the authority that reviews and approves these integrations.
Thank you. There's also a lot of discussion about a connector that had appeared in Logic apps in the past, one that stated post an adaptive card to separately listen for response in a chat or channel. It appears that this connector was available for a short time and it's no longer available today. I will take an action item on my part to look into this and ask the team for more information on if this connector is coming back, and if so, when it's coming back. But it seems a lot of people are excited for it, so
Yep.
I'll definitely be following up on this one.
JP?
Yes?
How would we know your response if you get what you hear back?
I was thinking about that. I can, so the team's call, this community call, the chat is ongoing as well. So I can go ahead and send it through the chat if you guys have access to that. And if not, I will also go ahead and publish a tweet from my account. I'll send my Twitter here in the chat. And I think that would be the quickest way so that you guys don't have to wait for the next community call to get an answer to that. Next question is from Rob asking, can I also use the universal action model for a card in Viva Connections? What about a web app?
So we are in conversations with Viva to have these adaptive cards and universal actions floated very broadly within their app. Have we reached a consensus on those discussions? No. But this is to share that that's something we are actively engaging on. So you should hear an update on that quite soon, maybe in the next quarter itself.
Perfect. Thank you, Karan. And Rob, I believe that the action.execute is available in Viva Connections. What I think won't be available is what Karan demonstrated, where you can see the card demonstrated in various different apps at the same time. Rafe is asking, can this be controlled separate rendering versus in one? And I'm not sure I understand that question completely. Rafi, can you maybe elaborate a little more in the chat? And we can come back to the question as soon as we get some more details. Gao is asking a question, can the action be a call to an Azure function? And Tomas, thank you so much for responding that in the chat. For the people that don't have the chat, the answer is yes. The action can be a call to an Azure function. Next question is from Ryan. Can the universal action.execute work with a flow or power virtual agent? I use a lot of adaptive cards in Outlook, but have been using the action.openURL action to call HTTP request flow. I want to switch to the new universal action, but need a low-code way to handle the action.execute logic.
I'm thinking what the right answer to this is. I know there were attempts to have a low-code experience for action.execute in place, but I would request to confirm internally before I respond to that. So maybe JPU and I can speak with someone at Microsoft just to keep a track on the progress made thus far on this.
Absolutely, I agree with that as well. But I think, Karan, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but we're looking to switch these actions over to action.execute, right?
Yes.
Trying to make the action.openURL yes. and action.http be action.executes, right?
Yes, that's true. The intent is to have all obsolete action types, if I may call them that way, have them switched over to action.execute, because while we want to be cognizant of backward compatibility, I think it would be fair to say that almost every new adaptive card feature and capability is going to be built on top of action.execute.
Perfect. Thank you. Gareth is asking, are adaptive cards playing a role at Build 2022? As of now, I don't have any information on that, Gareth, but if anything changes, you can expect to hear either through an announcement on Twitter or in one of the next community calls as well. I think we have one right before Build coming up.
And JP, not to reveal a lot, but yes, adaptive cards will play a key role at Build this year. What exactly would we demonstrate? I think let's wait for Build to showcase that.
But, perfect. Yes. There we go. You guys just got a sneak peek into Build from Karan. I'm super excited to see that content demonstrated in Build. Guess you'll have to tune in to learn more about that. Great session. Happy to learn more about adaptive cards. Is there any update regarding the payload issue to a Teams connector, currently 28 KB, which is very low to post a clear image via adaptive card? Is there any other way to post a clear image to Teams/a chat channel?
Thanks for that question. We are aware of this limit. Now, there are two ways to respond to this. Do we have a way to expand the limit today? While we do, the guidance from the Teams platform team, the team that owns these chats and conversations in Teams, is to still have that restriction in place. One of the key reasons we have that restriction is because of perf or performance considerations. As the message or the payload size increases, it can have adverse implications on the overall performance and rendering speed of the platform. The other way to answer this would be it possibly is a recommendation to not have images within the payload itself, but rather have links to these images. And if a user wants to view these images before responding to the content in the adaptive card, they can get redirected to that image and then be back within the adaptive card to appropriately act upon the card. So while it may not be the best possible way to do it, it still can serve as a workaround.
And Shibin, thank you so much for asking that question. I really hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I know it's not related and it's not exactly what you were looking for, but I went ahead and pasted in the chat a recording of our previous community call, the one from February of this year, where one of our partners made a video player bot for Teams. It's not exactly the same, but I know that they talked about some ways to show a video in the proper quality with taking some workarounds that are not shown. Tony is asking, what kind of Azure resources should be created in the backend structure?
It's just going to be an Azure bot, and all you need to do after the creation of the bot is to subscribe 2 channels, one for Teams, one for Outlook. And as far as the backend is concerned, you are done with it. So the Azure bot that you would create would actually act as the intermediate layer between these clients, the Teams and Outlook clients, and your APIs. And the only additional step after the creation of the bot is the subscription to these channels, to Outlook and Teams channels.
Ryan is asking, is there a TAP community for adaptive cards? Ryan, could you maybe expand that acronym? I don't think I'm aware of what TAP community means. In the meantime, we can hop over to the next question. What is the progress on component features in adaptive cards? So Alexander, adaptive components, that's definitely still on our roadmap. We don't have a fixed date on that yet. We're hoping to get it done within, I think our latest estimates have been early next year. We have some conflicting priorities at this point, and it sort of got put back in the backlog. I know that there is still progress being made on it. I'm just unsure as to what day we can fully commit for it. Is there any way to leverage universal actions to develop a workflow cards in other channels like direct line? I know that we have to develop some code, but have sort of a reference.
I can't think of any. As far as I understand, when we developed action.execute or the universal action model, the first 2 canvases that we thought of were Teams and Outlook. So yeah, I'm tempted to say the answer to your question is no. The only 2 surfaces on which action.execute or universal actions work today and also have the sync or the interop between them are Teams and Outlook.
Awesome. And Drew is asking, anyone tried to use Teams Connect to send an adaptive card into a shared channel? Looks to not be supported yet. This is not really in line with the universal action models we've talked. I think this might be a Power Automate question. Is there anyone in the call maybe that can answer this question? Looks like we might be getting some answers in the chat. Drew, unfortunately, I don't know the answer to this question. Anyone tried to use Teams Connect to send an adaptive card into a shared channel? Looks to not be supported yet. It might not be supported yet. I know the Power Automate crew is still making some updates and looking to actually update us as well, the latest version of adaptive cards that they utilize. So it might be coming soon if it's not already supported. Jim is asking, can we use other components like the Microsoft Graph toolkit in an adaptive card? Jim, I think we do have support for Microsoft Graph. Valeris is asking, what is planned in roadmap related to adaptive cards in terms of provisioning, like specific adaptive card forms or setups in Teams approval flow where you can provision approval templates automatically? I'm not sure what is meant with templating. I know we do have templating with adaptive cards today where, actually, I think that might be the question. So In our designer, Valeris, we have a section for data where you can enable things like adaptive card templates. What this does is provide data binding support where the data can change based on the information you provided, giving users different sort of views. There might be some workarounds that need to be done, for example, using our $when key, which basically establishes a condition based on some inputs that need to be met to show a different card based on the information you're giving it. But I think that would be possible today. Ryan asked, technical access preview. Ryan, the closest thing we have to that is our CI build of the website. That's where we post all of our pre-release content and get the latest updates build on a nightly build of our main branch on GitHub. So for example, one feature that's coming in version 1.6 that you can actually use today in that CI version of the website is the carousel component. So this is a horizontal carousel that lets you have multiple views of an adaptive card displayed and travel to next and previous cards. This is not available in version 1.5, which was our latest release. It's coming in version 1.6 and can be accessed through our CI website. Do you have a bot example somewhere on GitHub? For example, the bot that handles the scenario you showed in the video? I think, Karan, this one is towards you.
Yes, we do. And if I read the chat correctly, I think this has already been answered. So we did share a code sample at build last year, and that has been put up on GitHub. So I think the link to that is on our chat as well. So do refer that.
Perfect. And for the people that are watching this later, all the links will be gathered and shared both in our blog post and also through the YouTube video that will be posted later on. Which other channels aside from Teams and Outlook do these capabilities support?
Right. I mean, there are multiple ways to look at this question. If you are looking at just action.execute, then that is supported on multiple other channels as well. But I think the intent behind this question is to understand how we can bring this sync of actions across multiple canvases. And the answer to that is just across Teams and Outlook. We want to extend the support for this interop to other M365 hubs as well. And the 3P apps, the external apps, will follow suit. But yes, for today, the interop exists only across Teams and Outlook.
Perfect. And Jim is asking, is there a recording of the video player bot for Teams that you mentioned? Yes, Jim, it's our recording for our February 2022 community call. It's available on YouTube. I shared a link a little more up in the chat. And I see that Vesa also shared a link to it. Thank you so much for that. Trying to search for any other questions that we have. I don't think we have any more pending questions in the chat. I'll go ahead and move forward. Thank you everyone so much for attending the April 2022 community call. Thank you again, Karan, for joining us here. I know it's late over there and it's also a holiday, so really appreciate you taking the time to join us and talk about universal actions and messaging extensions. It's a topic that the community is super excited about and really hoping to get some more work in. As mentioned, I will take an action item to follow up on the question about the Azure Logic connector that has gone missing. I'll go ahead and share an update on my Twitter and also in the next community call, the second Thursday of May. If you're looking for more resources like our roadmap and our code repo, you can find all the links here. We also have samples and more tools in madewithcards.io. To access any of the other Microsoft 365 developer community calls, you can find all the links here as well as their cadence. And that'll be all for the April 22 community call for Adaptive Cards. Thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks, JP.
Thank you everyone.
Thanks,